2025 is here and all the changes in the solar industry that we've been hearing about are now in effect. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 7 of the main big changes and how they can impact your experience going solar. Now, the first major and most obvious change in 2025 is going to be the impacts of the new administration. Whether you support him or not, Donald Trump will be coming into office in January and is set to make a number of policy changes that will impact U.S. homeowners considering an investment into solar. The first major policy change will be a potential repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act, which has provided various clean energy incentives and solar tax credits to homeowners since 2022. The Inflation Reduction Act, or IRA, was considered one of the strongest investments by government into clean energy and introduced a number of incentives for residential and commercial solar. The biggest incentive, which most homeowners are aware of, was the increase and extension of the solar federal tax credit, which was raised to 30% and extended until 2032. This federal tax credit allowed for homeowners to reduce their financial burden from the overall solar investment by 30% and even included the cost of batteries if a homeowner wanted to add one to their system. What homeowners did not see, however, though they were also positively affected by, was a number of tax credits provided to the equipment manufacturers for moving production and manufacturing back into the states. Manufacturers have been able to now bring their manufacturing onshore, lowering their net cost thanks to various tax credits and grants, and pass those savings on to distributors and homeowners with lower prices. We've certainly seen this in 2025. Panel prices have actually never been lower, and battery and inverter prices continue to drop. Now, the word around town has been that repealing the Inflation Reduction Act as a whole is not a day one priority for the administration, given the bipartisan support for U.S. manufacturing and U.S. jobs. Solar energy is here to stay, and so even if parts of this bill are repealed, such as the healthcare provisions and corporate tax reforms, tax credits and incentives for homeowners investing into U.S.-made solar products would likely stay, as the domestic job losses caused by a repeal would be substantial. You could also make the case that the president's newfound relationship with Elon Musk could change his stance on solar energy and storage, and in fact lead to further support for the industry. Now, in a worst-case scenario where they choose to repeal the 30% solar federal tax credit for solar in 2025, homeowners who already have systems under contract would likely still be eligible for the credit, and the change in policy might not take effect for months, if not years, to give companies and consumers time to adjust. Another big topic of conversation over the past couple of weeks has been the potential effects that tariffs could have on U.S. consumers, which the Trump administration will likely pursue on day one as a bargaining method to improve trade deals for the U.S. going forward. Now, many people are not aware of this, but there have actually been and still are tariffs on solar panels imported into the U.S. since 2018, when the Trump administration imposed 30% tariffs on solar panels coming from China. In fact, in 2022, the Biden administration extended these tariffs to apply to a variety of solar components coming from various Southeastern Asian countries in order to incentivize a return to U.S. solar manufacturing. Therefore, over the past few years, and really thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, we have seen a massive boom in made-in-American solar panels, inverters, and batteries, meaning potential solar homeowners will not have to bear the added cost of internationally imported products. More than ever, it's in homeowners' best interest to purchase made-in-America equipment, and aside from various items such as nuts, bolts, and wires, which may continue to come from overseas, homeowners should not expect to pay more for their solar systems going forward. On that note, I would really like to know what you guys believe the impact of the incoming Trump administration will be on residential and commercial solar moving forward. Post your comments and thoughts down in the comments below. I'm super curious to know. Now, fortunately for homeowners, it will not be difficult to find Tier 1 panels that are made and assembled in the United States. Companies such as Q-Cells, Silfab, and Meyer Burger have been committed to building manufacturing sites here in the U.S., but for a change in 2025, we will finally begin to see 100% made-in-America panels, which includes made-in-America solar cells, arguably the most important component within a solar panel. It's the polysilicon material, which is protected by a clear sheet of glass in a solar panel that ultimately interacts with the photons from sunlight to generate electricity. And for a long time, what we had were these solar cells being manufactured overseas, shipped into America, only to be assembled into panels, at which point the manufacturer could stamp a big American flag on the spec sheet and kind of make people think that the panel was made and manufactured in the US. Q-Cells is the first company among the group that is truly going to bring raw polysilicon into their facility in America and then manufacture in-house the solar ingots, wafers, and cells, and therefore manufacture every part of the solar panel in the United States, which is a great step forward for the industry. There is an additional 10% domestic content tax credit that companies can earn for commercial and utility scale projects using US-made solar components, which includes the steel for racking. So expect for a trend of made in America products all around. Moving on, the next big change that will have an impact on people considering an investment into solar panels for their home is that utility companies will rapidly continue to move away from their one-for-one net metering, forcing new solar homeowners into investing into backup battery systems with their solar panels. To put it simply, utility companies just do not value your solar export as much as they used to. And it's not because they dislike you. The reason is due to an abundance of supply. In markets like California and Arizona, rooftop solar is not hard to find, and during the day, these areas have such a large supply of incoming solar generation and a relatively low demand during most of this time, and so the value isn't what it once was. Utility companies are always performing this balancing act between energy generation and the demand for it. And unlike conventional power plants, solar and wind resources can't be fully dispatched at will to help meet the real-time demand unless there's a battery system. To give a little bit more context, perhaps you've heard of the duck curve. A duck curve is essentially a line graph that tracks daily net energy load from the grid, and it gets its name because it looks like a duck. The example shown on the screen is for California starting in 2015 during springtime. However, in many solar-dense markets, it looks similar to this. You can see the tail of the duck represents your early morning energy demand, where it's fairly consistent and sees a small spike in the AM when people are getting ready for work. Once the sun rises, the massive army of solar panels in California gets to work and creates this extremely deep belly of the duck. This incoming solar generation heavily reduces the net energy load for the utility. Now, keep in mind that during the middle of the day, it's typically a lower demand period anyway. Then, once the early evening rolls around, there's naturally a huge spike in net energy demand due to two things. One, solar begins to taper off, and two, homeowners are getting home from work. This chart shows us that the belly's become considerably deeper since 2015 due to the solar boom, whereas the tail and the head of the duck, which represent the non-solar hours, haven't seen as large of a reduction. So, to summarize, because of this balancing act of energy demand and energy generation that utilities are managing in the solar mature areas, solar export has just become less valuable to them. That is why in markets such as California and Arizona, historically two of the largest states for rooftop solar, they simply became too overloaded with solar exports from homeowners and had to move away from offering one-to-one net metering. Now, if you live in a state that still has not fully matured yet and still offers one-to-one net metering, such as Florida or Texas, you should absolutely appreciate it. One-for-one net metering is becoming a thing of the past, and so if your utility company still offers it and you have not gone solar yet, I would highly suggest that you at least revisit the idea in order to get grandfathered into the one-to-one program. Very soon, possibly in 2025, things can make a change in those markets as they mature, and the investment simply may no longer make sense. And if you live in one of those states and need any help going through that process, reach out to me, book a call, and we can discuss options for your home. On the topic of utility companies and their impact on homeowners considering an investment into solar and storage, one positive thing to look for in 2025 will be the increase in virtual power plant incentive programs offered to homeowners with batteries. Now, for those of you who are not already aware, while utility companies have benefited massively from the trend of home electrification, one issue that all utility providers have recently dealt with across the country has been grid stabilization, especially during the summer months in the mid-afternoon when everybody's firing up their ACs and charging their EVs after coming home from work. It's increasingly common for local utility grids to become overloaded, causing them to have to fire up peaker plants or, in worst case scenarios, resort to rolling blackouts. In such cases, they may literally shut off power to entire zip codes in order to prevent the entire grid from collapsing. So to combat this, over the past couple of years in states like California and other parts of the country, utility companies have begun to offer homeowners who have grid-connected deep cycle batteries the option to participate in what are called virtual power plant programs. In these programs, during peak demand days, the utility company can, in a sense, take control of your battery and discharge the stored energy you have available to power parts of the grid where needed. Now, they understand just like you that this stored power is so valuable during the peak hours, so in some areas, they're going to pay you anywhere between $2 and $3 per kilowatt hour that they discharge from your battery. So this is going to be great for homeowners who may decide to travel during the summer months or homeowners using solar panels to power their homes during the afternoon. Over time, you can really reduce your financial burden by utilizing a program like this. The best virtual power plant program that I'm aware of is available to Massachusetts homeowners, and it's called Connected Solutions. And if homeowners choose to participate in energy sharing during the 4 summer months of the year, they can expect to receive, on average, $1,500 per battery per year. Now, most popular batteries today will have the necessary software to participate in virtual power plant programs, so whether you're interested in a Tesla Powerwall, the Enphase 5P, or Franklin Whole Home, these systems will all be able to utilize this function as long as your utility company has a program available. And as home electrification trends continue, I fully expect these programs to grow and become even more lucrative. So if you already have a battery or are purchasing one in the future, make sure you explore what programs are available for you. Another major change coming in 2025, which homeowners considering the idea of going solar need to be aware of, is the sheer number of smaller installers that will be going out of business. For those unaware, the residential solar industry really began to take off around 2016 when the combination of increasing electric rates, decreasing solar equipment prices, and low solar financing interest rates all came together, making the value proposition for rooftop solar very strong. The business was very lucrative, so each month, hundreds of new solar installation companies were being started nationwide by contractors who previously worked in roofing or home electric and wanted to get into the booming solar business. Now, unfortunately, between the summers of 2022 and 2023, interest rates more than doubled. And so for the majority of homeowners who relied on financing to purchase solar, the value proposition just became less favorable. As a result, solar contractors began doing a lot less business. The solar install business has a lot of fixed costs, including warehouse rent, required trucks, payroll for office staff and laborers, and insurance policies necessary to keep the door open. And so if a company cannot sustain 50 to 100 installations a month, they just cannot remain profitable and will have to close their doors. And this creates a worst case scenario for homeowners who had their systems previously installed by these companies because all of the warranties given by that installer will no longer be valid. What we saw in 2024 and will certainly continue to see in 2025 as interest rates remain high is many small installers going out of business or just simply being acquired by larger companies that can take on a bigger portion of the market share. And so it's really more important than ever that you vet your solar installers and really make sure that they're here to stay. One of the most valuable resources in your solar investment is going to be the various warranties offered by your installer. And if the installer goes out of business, like I said earlier, those warranties become worthless. If you would like to get connected to one of these larger installers that I've personally vetted, feel free to reach out to us by using the link below this video, and we'd be happy to provide you with the solar quote and proposal for your home, as long as you live in one of the states which we service, which you can find listed on our website. Now, for those of you interested in changes and innovation coming to solar equipment in 2025, I unfortunately cannot report to you any game-changing improvements to solar panels or batteries coming out, but we'll share with you the biggest change which is coming in 2025, which is going to be the vertical integration of solar equipment that's used in a solar install. Previously, it would be very common to have a solar installation where you used one brand of solar panels, a different brand of inverters, and then possibly a third brand of batteries. This setup was fairly common for a long time. However, there were many issues arising related to interfacing these different brands and making them all work together seamlessly. And so over the past couple of years, many battery and inverter manufacturers have expanded their product lines in an effort to keep solar installations under one brand. We saw this recently with Tesla, and it's also becoming true with companies like SolarEdge and Enphase. These companies are making it so that if you want to install their battery or their inverter, you'll likely need to stay within their brand for all components of the solar installation, aside from the solar panels. This is very important for homeowners to understand, especially those who want to build forward-compatible systems. If you're considering an investment into a solar-only system today, but really want the flexibility to add a battery or potentially an EV charger to interface with your solar panel system in the future, you may be limited to the products made by the brand of inverter that your system uses. Make sure you discuss the various inverter brands with your solar consultant and really the pros and cons of each solution to make sure your system is future-proof for your needs. If you think that there's a big change coming up in 2025 which I missed, please comment that below and I will try to respond to you with my thoughts. Now, this video will give you some insights for things to look for in the solar industry in 2025, but if you're in the process of shopping for solar, you also need to make sure that you understand the common regrets that people have after purchasing solar for their home. So make sure you check out my video going over the 5 things that homeowners regret after buying solar for their home, which will pop up on the screen now. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.